Plymouth's on the move. Only when you hear this car's name do you know you're looking at a low-priced car. Plymouth 63, an exciting car to look at. Clean lines, flat deck, a tough, tight car, and a tiger on the road.
The 1962 Plymouth Savoy may have been marketed as a classic family car, but it packed a powerhouse under the hood. Sure, this long-bodied car was perfect for day trips, but the large max wedge engine also dominated the drag strip races of the early 60s. The more time has gone by and the better we understand the car market of the times, the more obvious Chrysler's decision was to abandon the very large and heavy S-Series cars that were originally planned in favor of these smaller, lighter, more efficient, and cheaper to build cars. Compared to their predecessors and competitors, they were roomier, handled better, were quicker, and more fuel efficient. What else could a discriminating buyer in 1962 ask for? Oh, right. Popular styling, the issue that trumps all. The truly discriminating buyer would also have appreciated that, given that the long hood, short deck proportions were well ahead of the times, foreshadowing the Mustang and just about everything else further down the road. But obviously there weren't very many of those buyers in 1962. The Plymouth and Dodge were on the ragged edge of the comfort zone of Americans. It was their loss, as CarLife points out, since these cars had exceptional dynamic qualities, among others. Plymouth produced a bunch of really cool cars in the 1960s, but the Savoy isn't usually included on the list. That's mostly due to its polarizing design, but the final generation version, built from 1962 to 1964, has at least one cool thing to brag about. I'm talking about the 413 cubic inch, 6.8-liter max wedge V8. You see, the Savoy spent most of its life on the market as a mid- or entry-level full-size automobile. As a result, it did not get any high-performance options in the 1950s. That changed in 1962 when Plymouth gave the nameplate its final major redesign. On top of adding a 383 cubic inch to the lineup, Mopar also introduced the Max Wedge on the options list. Based on the race spec engines that powered the Dodge Ram Chargers and the Plymouth Superstocks that dominated the drag strip at the time, the road spec Max Wedge found its way in many midsize Mopars from 1962 to 1964. The Savoy, which had been downsized for the 1962 model year, was among them. And the Max Wedge turned the awkward-looking two-door coupe into a full-blown muscle car. Rated at up to 420 horsepower and 413 cubic inch, the Max Wedge was just as potent as the 426 Hemi that debuted a few years later. However, the expensive option wasn't very popular, so these cars are hard to come by in 2022. The black 1962 Savoy you're looking at is not a full-fledged Max Wedge car, but it comes pretty close. Either way, this Savoy is further described as a stunning nut and bolt restoration, and the pictures confirm the claim. What's more, it's a two-door post car, which is pretty rare regardless of what's under the hood. Making things that much better, the black exterior is paired with a blue and gray interior that looks downright fabulous. Moreover, in the mid-90s, they published a magazine called CarLife Road Test, in which Chrysler and his team would do certain experiments on a particular car, and this time it was focused on the 1962 Plymouth Savoy V8. This test was made at Chrysler's Proving Grounds, a month before these cars were officially introduced, and the subject Plymouth was a low-trim Savoy with the 230 horsepower, 318 poly V8, 3-speed manual, and no power assists. CL made only a passing remark about the styling, saying, "When we first saw it, we thought it was a close-coupled coupe." But then CL was not one to dwell much on the ever-changing styling fads, but focused on the practical and objective aspects, good or bad, stating, "The interiors are even roomier than before, especially in the important matter of leg and headroom for six-footers." Driving a stick-shift car again was really fun, mostly because it turned out to be a bomb, the best performance for the least money we know of. Rather surprisingly, the new concentric column shifter worked beautifully. Hard to believe given how bulky subsequent A-body column shifters were. We assume it was carefully adjusted given this car's pre- or early production status. The 318 was a torquer, and combined with the relatively light weight, resulted in some pretty brisk acceleration times. 0 to 60 came in 10.5 seconds, comparable or better than big-engine premium luxury cars of the times. A quarter mile was absolved in 17.2 seconds at 77 miles per hour, and 0 to 100 took less than 30 seconds. If that wasn't quick enough, a lower axle ratio was available, and for those really wanting to move out, there was the 305 horsepower 361 V8. And of course, later in the year, the sky would be the limit, with the 383 and the myth-making Max Wedge 413 becoming available. The low-rev, high-torque 318 made driving with the manual relatively effortless, as one could start in second and shift to third at 10 or 15 miles per hour and just chug along in that. Once again, it confirms what we have increasingly come to see. The weaker V6s were better served with either an automatic or a proper 4-speed floor shift, whereas the torquey V8s did just fine with a 3-speed manual. The automatic was, of course, a nice convenience, but the 4-speed manuals were mostly wasted on them, unless it was a close ratio box behind a high-winding Chevy V8 or such. The ride is very satisfactory, not as soft as some of the bigger cars, but one that seems to hold the car firmly to the road when traveling fast over difficult terrain. A rare trait for big American cars back then. There was an understeer naturally, and on winding roads with the slow, unassisted steering. The saying, driving can get to be a chore. Well, yes. The slow manual steering on American cars was a significant deficit. I remember furiously sawing the wheel on my father's Dart on the winding back roads in northern Baltimore County, but on the highway or freeway, the actual road feel was a boon. On the other hand, fuel economy, although not tested, should turn out to be exceptional. The guess was that a very careful driver should be able to hit 20 miles per gallon, with 16 to 18 being more typical. Excellent considering the performance. I'm not sure it really got that good in reality, though. Getting 20 miles per gallon in a V8 was largely a myth. Also, the top speed of this beauty was estimated to be at 110 miles per hour. The reduction in glass area was praised, given the hot and sunny day on which the car was tested. One tremendous improvement noted inside the car was the new, functional-looking instrument panel. Yes, indeed, it's my very most favorite IP of its kind. If you're not so wild about the exterior, this alone makes it worth it, though. And you don't have to look at the exterior once you're inside, but you do have to look at the dash. Priorities. Well, there you have it. The Stodgy family sedan that literally destroyed everyone on the road. Have you owned or at least know a person that owned one of this baby? Comment down below and let's discuss. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button to keep you updated on our future uploads. Until then, I'll catch you on the next one.